The hum of the city always seemed to amplify on nights I wrestled with numbers. My laptop screen bled blue light onto my face as I stared at the profit margins, or, more accurately, the lack thereof. 2 years. 2 years of blood, sweat, and almost tears poured into foundation supply, my little construction materials chain, and I was barely keeping my head above water. Almost there, I muttered, running a hand through my already messy hair. My dad, Richard Harding, owned Harding Distribution, the biggest operation of its kind in the state. He'd built it from the ground up. I'd witnessed his hustle since childhood, a hustle he drilled into me. No handouts. Build your own empire, earn it. So I kept my mouth shut about who my father was, wanting to prove myself. I glanced at the photo on my desk, Liam, my boyfriend. He was good-looking, charming on the surface, and for the first year, he was my biggest cheerleader. "You got this, Sarah," he'd say, wrapping his arms around me while I stressed about deadlines and suppliers. But that was then. Lately, his support felt like a cheap imitation. "Another late night, huh?" He'd stand in the doorway of my makeshift home office, a sneer curling his lip. "You know Chloe's boyfriend, he's buying her designer bags. She doesn't have to work past 5 p.m., Chloe." Designer bags. It was always a competition, a subtle and sometimes not so subtle jab at my meager income. He knew I was drowning in debt, employee salaries, and a constant battle against bigger companies. Still, the resentment seeped in, poisoning our conversations. I told myself he was just worried about our future. But the worry felt laced with contempt. His parents, Margaret and David, were a whole other breed of condescending. They both worked at Harding Distribution, secure in their middle management positions, blissfully unaware that my dad signed their paychecks. They talked about their stable careers, their real jobs, while dismissing my business as a cute little project. "Sarah, dear," Margaret would say, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "maybe it's time to consider something more secure. A steady paycheck is so important." David would chime in, "Hard work always pays off eventually, some sooner than others," and they would exchange a knowing glance. I wanted to scream, to tell them exactly who I was, but I bit back the words. I didn't need the drama. I needed to focus. I needed to make Foundation Supply a success. So I smiled, nodded, and swallowed the bitter pill of their patronizing remarks. My own pride was starting to feel like a curse. The invitation arrived on thick, expensive paper. The annual Davies family reunion. Last year's was tolerable. Bad food, awkward small talk, a sea of unfamiliar faces. I was looking forward to a weekend of peace and quiet, but Liam's mood shifted the second he saw the invitation. "You have to go," he insisted, his voice laced with a strange urgency. "It's important." "Important for whom?" I asked, suspicion creeping in. "For us," he said, avoiding my gaze. "My parents. They want you to make a good impression." "I always try to," I replied, my voice tight. "Clearly, it's never enough." He sighed dramatically. "Just dress well, okay? Don't wear anything cheap." His tone was sharp, almost disgusted. My blood boiled. "Cheap?" "I work my ass off, Liam. I don't have money to throw around on designer clothes. It's not about the money, Sarah. It's about respect. Show them you care. Respect." It felt like I was being set up, like they were expecting me to fail. The days leading up to the reunion were filled with anxiety. I agonized over what to wear, how to act, what to say. I spent hours scouring my closet, trying to find something that would appease their snobbish sensibilities. Liam's warnings echoed in my head. "Don't talk too much about your business. They won't understand. Be agreeable. Don't be yourself." The last one stung the most. The Davies family compound sprawled across acres of manicured lawns and perfectly sculpted gardens. Ferraris and Maseratis lined the driveway, a stark contrast to my beat-up Honda Civic. As I stepped out of the car, I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. It was like walking into a scene from a movie about the obscenely wealthy. I'd settled on a simple, elegant dress. I thought it was classy enough, but as I walked toward the throng of people, their eyes scanning my presence, I felt like I was wearing a burlap sack. David greeted me with a chilling smile. "Ah, the business tycoon has arrived. Welcome, welcome." He bellowed the words loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. A ripple of snickers spread through the crowd. My face flushed. The next few hours were an agonizing blur. I was bombarded with thinly veiled insults and condescending questions. "So, Sarah, is that startup still afloat? Or are you finally considering a real job? My daughter just got promoted to VP at her firm. What about you, dear? Any progress? Perhaps you should take some lessons from Margaret and David. They've built such impressive careers at Harding Distribution. Each comment was like a tiny stab, designed to chip away at my confidence." Liam was nowhere to be seen. He was off to the side, laughing and joking with his cousins, completely oblivious to my torment. Or perhaps he was enjoying it. I spotted Liam's paternal grandmother, and she caught my gaze. She smiled and gently nudged her husband, his grandfather. He waddled over to me. "And what do you do, dear?" he asked. "I own a supply company," I said. "We sell materials for construction." "Oh," he said, unimpressed. "And how large is your company?" "It's small," I said. "But we are growing." He grunted. "Well, I hope you know that you will never be as successful as this family." He walked away without another word. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare, forced to endure a relentless barrage of snide remarks and judgment. I wanted to run, to hide, to disappear, but I was too stubborn. I refused to let them break me. The crescendo of humiliation came during the awards ceremony. Liam's parents took to the stage, microphones in hand, to announce the family's latest achievements, promotions, graduations, weddings, the usual. Then, Margaret's voice cut through the air, dripping with saccharine sweetness. "We also have Liam's girlfriend here, Sarah, who is struggling with her little business." The blood drained from my face. "Good luck, dear," she continued, her voice amplified through the speakers. "Maybe one day she'll be as successful as the rest of us." The crowd erupted in laughter. I scanned the room, my vision blurring with tears of rage. David chimed in. "Keep hustling, kid. Hard work usually pays off eventually." More laughter. Liam stood at the side of the stage, his face flushed with excitement, grinning like a complete and utter moron. It was all a game to him. He wanted to see me squirm. Something snapped inside me. The years of suppressed anger, the months of silent endurance, the countless insults I'd swallowed, it all coalesced into a burning rage. I stood up, my hands trembling, my voice shaking. "It's interesting you're talking down to someone whose family basically signs your paychecks." The laughter died down. The room fell silent. Every eye was on me. David's face contorted in confusion. "What are you talking about?" he stammered. I took a deep breath, trying to control the tremor in my voice. "Check who really owns Harding Distribution." Panic flickered in their eyes. "What are you saying?" Margaret screeched, her carefully constructed composure crumbling. "My father owns the entire company," I said, my voice gaining strength. "I'm Richard Harding's daughter." Gasps rippled through the crowd. All those smirks vanished. Liam's jaw dropped. David stammered, your father, wait, you're saying." I nodded calmly. "Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying." Liam stared at me, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" he mumbled. "Because you never asked." I shot back, my voice dripping with contempt. "All you guys did was mock me for not making enough money." The family members started whispering and shuffling around, clearly wanting to be anywhere else. Liam tried to grab my hand, forcing a sickly sweet smile. "Babe, it was just jokes. Nobody meant to hurt you. Let's just enjoy the party, okay?" I shrugged his hand off, feeling a surge of liberation. "Cut the crap, Liam. You let your parents trash me in front of everyone. You never defended me. This wasn't some playful teasing, it was straight up humiliation. "We're done." The shock on his face was priceless. He started trembling, sputtering excuses. "You're taking this too seriously." "No, Liam," I said, my voice firm. "I'm finally taking myself seriously." I turned to his parents, my eyes blazing with anger. "If you'd treated me like a human being instead of a punching bag, maybe you wouldn't be in this awkward position right now." I turned and walked away, leaving them standing there in stunned silence. I half expected someone to chase after me, but no one did. Once I got in my car, my phone exploded with calls, texts, and voicemails from Liam, his parents, and random cousins. I ignored them all. I was furious and relieved, all at the same time. That night, I felt lighter than I had in years, but I also worried about the fallout. Would Liam's parents retaliate at work? Would they cause problems for my dad? A couple of days later, my dad called. He was calm as always. "So," he said, "I hear there's been a misunderstanding between you and two of my employees." I sighed and explained the whole thing. He listened patiently, without interrupting. "They claim you threatened them," he said. "No, Dad," I replied. "They just realized who I am and freaked out." "All right," he said. "I trust you." But from their tone, it sounds like they're terrified of losing their jobs. "All I did was tell them the truth," I said, rolling my eyes. "They publicly humiliated me, so I publicly revealed who they were messing with." My dad assured me he wouldn't fire them just because of personal drama, but he hinted that they'd been problematic employees for a while, rude to subordinates, dismissive of rules, constant complainers. This stunt with me wasn't looking good for them. Liam started texting me non-stop, begging me to tell my father to go easy on his parents. "They were just joking, Sarah. Don't ruin their livelihood." I didn't bother responding. I was done being their doormat. One night, Liam showed up at my apartment, pounding on my door. When I finally opened it, he was sobbing. "My parents are freaking out at work. They might lose their positions. Please, Sarah, fix it." "It was all just a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding is you thinking I'll bail you out after you treated me like trash," I said, my voice cold. He started shouting, calling me heartless. My neighbors began peeking into the hallway. I stepped back inside and slammed the door shut. I didn't need any more drama. The next week was a whirlwind of updates from my dad. Liam's parents were under a company review. It had opened a can of worms. Managers and regular employees were coming forward with stories about their bullying, manipulation, and general arrogance. My dad wasn't the type to let that slide. He launched a formal investigation. Suddenly, Liam's parents went from smug to desperate. Then they tried a dirty move. They started spreading rumors in my local business circle, claiming that my startup was shady and that I was only afloat because my father funneled cash to me secretly. A friend in a local business association told me about it, and I saw red. They were trying to ruin my reputation so I'd be forced to back down and let them off the hook. They messed with the wrong woman. I immediately called my father. He was furious. "Now they're defaming our family. We might need to take legal action." "Gather evidence first," I said. "I already have," he replied, his voice grim. "The HR department has a file on them as thick as a phone book." Meanwhile, the first started documenting every rumor I heard. People who got an earful from them would call or text me, relaying what was said. It all went into a neat little file I could show an attorney if it came to that. My father asked if I was comfortable taking legal steps. "Absolutely," I said. "I'm not about to let them smear me." They had no idea how well connected my dad was in the industry, and they were basically committing career suicide. The moment they realized we were collecting evidence, they panicked even harder. Liam started messaging me again, claiming he had proof that it was all his parents' doing. He said he'd hand it over if I just helped them keep their jobs. I ignored him. I wasn't about to play that game. He even tried to say he still loved me and that we could work things out. Total BS. He never apologized for letting them rip me apart at that reunion. He only cared about saving their butts. Finally, the company review wrapped up. My dad told me Liam's parents were demoted from their mid-level management positions. They weren't outright fired, but they lost their management roles and were put on some sort of probation. There were too many official complaints to let them stay in power. It wasn't even about me, it was about their horrible track record. They were lucky to still have jobs at all. It was humiliating for them. Their pay dropped, they lost a bunch of perks, and they'd have to attend training sessions on harassment and ethics. If they didn't comply, they could resign. Obviously, they were furious and blamed me, saying I used personal revenge to ruin them. But from the company's standpoint, the evidence was rock solid. On top of that, my father and I sent them a cease and desist letter for slandering my startup. We made it clear that if they spread any more lies, we'd sue them for defamation. They freaked out and started telling everyone that I tricked them, that I set them up. But most people already knew how nasty they'd been for years. Even Liam's extended family members reached out to me, saying his parents have always been arrogant and rude. One cousin said he was actually glad someone finally stood up to them. Liam tried one last push, calling me repeatedly, saying his parents were being forced to downgrade their lifestyle and that it was ruining their mental health. He told me they might lose their apartment and begged me to talk to my father. I answered one last time. They did this to themselves, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. You stood by them while they mocked me, so don't expect me to rescue any of you now. He started screaming, and I hung up. I was done. My father told me not to stress. I'm proud you didn't use my name to get ahead, he said, and I'm also proud you wouldn't let them bulldoze you. This is about business and ethics, not personal revenge. Word around the company was that Liam's parents were miserable. Some employees wouldn't even speak to them unless it was strictly work-related because they'd made so many enemies over the years. At least now they were forced to follow the same rules as everyone else. Liam apparently had to move back in with them because he couldn't afford his own place. He tried texting me, claiming he was open to changing and that he regretted everything. I saw right through it. He was basically saying, I'll do anything if you fix our situation. Yeah, no thanks. My business, meanwhile, was finally turning a profit. I wasn't rolling in money, but I was secure enough to pay my bills, expand a little, and not stress 24/7. And now that I wasn't dealing with Liam's constant negativity, I had more energy to focus on growth. I picked up new clients, partnered with local builders who appreciated my niche materials, and it felt good to prove everyone wrong, especially those who said my startup was doomed. My father still checked in on me, but he respected that I was paving my own way. I only went to him for advice, not handouts. That entire fiasco taught me a massive lesson about who to trust. Liam never believed in me. He only liked the idea of me doing well, but the moment my bank account didn't match his standards, he switched from supportive to belittling. His parents took it further, humiliating me just for kicks. And then, bam, turns out they'd spent years doing that to people at their workplace too. Karma caught up to them in a big way. Sure, I might sound cold about it, but I have zero regrets. They messed with me, tried to trash my name, and found out the hard way that I wasn't just some random small business owner. They could stomp on. A few people on my side urged me to bury the hatchet, to be the bigger person, but they didn't stand there at that family reunion, listening to that humiliating speech on the microphone. Nobody stepped in to defend me that night, including Liam. Why would I bend over backward for them now? Forgiveness doesn't mean letting people keep punching you in the face. They can live with the consequences. Now, I'm just focusing on moving forward. I'm single, less stressed, and feeling more motivated. My startup continues to grow. The drama with them has mostly died down, except for the occasional rumor I hear, which I just laugh off because nobody believes a word they say anymore. It's kind of hilarious how they went from smugly bragging about their stable jobs to scrambling to save their positions and reputation. I guess the moral here is never judge someone by their struggle face. You never know their real story or the connections they might have. Also, if you're a manager, don't be a jerk to your coworkers. You never know who might be watching. As for me, I'm content. My life is calmer, my business is on an upswing, and I got rid of a toxic boyfriend and his dreadful parents. It's a win all around. Sometimes karma really does come around to bite the entitled. And if anyone reading this feels like they're being humiliated by people who don't know your full story, just remember, you don't owe them a damn explanation. Sooner or later, they'll get what's coming to them. That's my story. Looking back, I can't believe how everything blew up, but I'm glad it did. It exposed their true colors before I wasted more time in that relationship. Now, I'm free to focus on myself and the people who genuinely support me. And honestly, I'm happier than I've been in a long time. Let them stew in their own mess. They made it, after all. 6 months have passed since that eventful family reunion, and life has taken some unexpected turns. My startup has grown beyond what I initially imagined. Those specialty construction materials I focused on, turns out there was a much bigger market than anyone realized, especially with the recent housing boom in our state. I've opened 2 new locations and hired a team of 15 people. The best part? Every single one of them knows exactly who I am and where I come from. But they're here because they believe in our mission and work ethic. No more hiding. No more pretending. It's surprisingly liberating to just be myself. Last week, something interesting happened. I was at a major industry conference, representing my company at our booth, when I spotted Liam's parents across the hall. They were working a much smaller booth from my father's company, looking notably less confident than they used to. Our eyes met briefly, and they quickly looked away, suddenly very interested in reorganizing their brochures. Later that day, his mother actually approached me while I was alone, getting coffee. She looked different, humbler, tired. "Maybe the first owe you an apology," she said, staring into her own coffee cup. "We were cruel to you, and we were wrong. Not just about you, but about how we treated people in general." I stood there, surprised by her sincerity. She explained that the demotion had been a wake-up call. She and her husband had been forced to attend extensive management training, and somewhere along the way, they'd started to recognize their toxic behavior patterns. "We lost friends, respect, our standing in the community," she admitted. "But maybe we needed to lose it all to see what we'd become." As for Liam, she told me he'd finally moved out of their house and taken a job in another state. Apparently, the whole experience had changed him too. He'd sent me one final email a month ago. I hadn't opened it yet, but his mother said he was getting counseling for his insecurity issues and learning to stand on his own feet. I listened to everything she said and I appreciated her honesty. But I also realized something important. Their growth wasn't my responsibility. I wished her well, told her I was glad they were learning from the experience, and went back to my booth. It felt good to close that chapter without bitterness, but also without getting pulled back into their drama. My father called me the next day, chuckling. He'd heard about the conference encounter from other employees. "You handled that very professionally," he said, "much better than I might have." Coming from him, that meant everything. These days, my focus is entirely on expansion. I'm exploring partnerships with sustainable building material suppliers, and there's talk of possibly expanding into neighboring states. My father has offered advice when I've asked for it, but he's kept his promise. No handouts, no special treatment. Every success and failure is mine to own. I've started mentoring other young entrepreneurs, especially women trying to break into male-dominated industries. I tell them my story sometimes, not to brag about the revenge aspect, but to emphasize the importance of self-worth and standing your ground. "Your struggle doesn't define you," I tell them, "but how you handle disrespect will." The local business community has completely shifted their attitude toward me. Those rumors Liam's parents tried to spread, they backfired spectacularly. Now, I'm known as someone who built something real, despite having every opportunity to take the easy way out. Other business owners respect that I chose to start from scratch when I could have simply lived off my father's name. Recently, I was asked to speak at a small business convention about resilience and authenticity in entrepreneurship. Standing at that podium, I couldn't help but think about that humiliating moment at the family reunion. How fitting that public mockery had transformed into public recognition. I'm dating again, casually, but this time I'm upfront about everything: my background, my ambitions, my expectations. It's amazing how much easier relationships are when you don't have to hide pieces of yourself. The right people appreciate authenticity. The wrong ones are scared off by it. Either way, I win. Looking ahead, I'm excited about the future. My startup isn't just surviving anymore, it's thriving. We're developing a reputation for excellent service and innovative solutions in the construction supply industry. Every now and then, I drive past my father's main distribution center, where Liam's parents still work. I don't feel anger anymore, just gratitude for the lessons learned. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting better. My success isn't about proving them wrong anymore. It's about proving myself right. And that feels better than any revenge ever could. As for that final email from Liam, I finally opened it last night. It was a genuine apology, free from excuses or requests for help. He acknowledged his cowardice, his family's cruelty, and the weakness of his character. "You deserved better," he wrote, "and I hope you found it." I archived the email without replying. Some chapters don't need a response, they just need to end. My story is still being written, but now I'm the one holding the pen. And every word is authentically mine. The city lights twinkle below as I sit on my balcony, a glass of wine in hand. It's a far cry from the cramped apartment I shared with Liam. This is my space, a testament to hard work and a refusal to be defined by someone else's expectations. My gaze drifts towards the horizon, a vast expanse of possibilities stretching before me. Foundation Supply is running smoothly, managed by a capable team I trust implicitly. The constant firefighting of the early years is a distant memory. I finally have the bandwidth to consider bigger questions. What impact do I want to make? How can I use my success to help others? I've been approached by several organizations that support women-owned businesses, inviting me to join their boards. It's tempting. Sharing my experience, mentoring young entrepreneurs, it feels like a natural extension of the path I've carved for myself. I consider accepting. The Sustainable Materials Initiative is also gaining momentum. We're partnering with innovative suppliers who prioritize eco-friendly practices, reducing our carbon footprint, and offering customers environmentally conscious options. My father is cautiously supportive, impressed by the potential for growth and the positive impact on the industry. He's even considering incorporating some of these practices into Harding distribution, a shift I never thought I'd see. Romantically, things are quiet. I've gone on a few dates, met some interesting people, but nothing has sparked that undeniable connection. I'm not actively searching, though. My focus is elsewhere, on building a life that feels authentic and fulfilling, with or without a partner. I'm not closing myself off, just prioritizing my own well-being and ensuring that whoever enters my life is a true equal, someone who celebrates my achievements and supports my ambitions without trying to dim my light. The other day, I received a handwritten letter from Liam's grandmother. She apologized again for the way I was treated at the reunion, expressing her pride in my accomplishments and acknowledging the positive changes she's seen in her family. She even enclosed a small antique compass to guide you on your journey, she wrote. It was a touching gesture, a sign that even the most entrenched beliefs can be challenged and transformed. I keep the compass on my desk, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is always a direction to navigate toward. As I finish my wine, I feel a sense of profound peace settle over me. The scars of the past are fading, replaced by a quiet confidence and a fierce determination to live life on my own terms. I'm no longer defined by my father's legacy or by the expectations of others. I am Sarah Harding, owner of Foundation Supply, and I am building my own empire, one brick, one board, one success at a time. The future is uncertain, but I'm not afraid. I've faced adversity, overcome obstacles, and emerged stronger than ever. I know who I am, what I stand for, and what I'm capable of. And that, I realize, is the most powerful foundation of all. The wind shifts, carrying the sounds of the city, a symphony of ambition and dreams. I smile, a genuine, heartfelt smile, and raise my glass to the new horizons that await. The best is yet to come. A few weeks after that reflective evening, I received an unexpected call. It was David Davies, Liam's father. My immediate reaction was to decline it, but a flicker of curiosity stopped me. I answered, my voice cool and cautious. "Sarah," he began, his voice hesitant, "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I needed to ask you something." I waited, bracing myself for another plea for forgiveness, another attempt to absolve himself of responsibility. But what came next surprised me. "Harding Distribution. We're struggling," he admitted, his voice laced with a hint of desperation. "The sustainable initiatives. Your father's pushing them hard. We're having trouble adapting. We're losing contracts." He paused, gathering his courage. "I know it's a long shot, but would you be willing to consult? Just offer some advice on how to transition? You've clearly been successful." The request hung in the air, absurd, almost comical. The man who had dismissed my business as a cute little project was now begging for my help to save his own job. The irony was almost too much to bear. I considered my options. I could refuse, relish in his discomfort, and revel in the poetic justice. But something held me back. Not forgiveness, not sympathy, but a sense of closure. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about moving forward, about using my knowledge and experience to make a positive impact. "All right, David," I said, my voice even. "I'll consult, but on my terms." I outlined my conditions: a formal contract, a fair consulting fee, and a guarantee that my recommendations would be taken seriously. He agreed without hesitation, clearly desperate for any assistance he could get. Working with Harding Distribution was surreal. I walked through the familiar hallways, greeted by employees who once looked down on me, now regarding me with a mixture of respect and apprehension. I analyzed their operations, identified inefficiencies, and proposed solutions that were both sustainable and profitable. My suggestions were implemented. It wasn't easy. There were resistance and skepticism, but I persevered, driven by a desire to prove that my methods worked. I didn't do it for David or Margaret. I did it for myself, for the challenge, for the satisfaction of transforming a struggling company into a more efficient and environmentally responsible operation. In the end, the consulting project was a success. Harding Distribution adapted to the changing market, secured new contracts, and stabilized its operations. David and Margaret, while still somewhat reserved, expressed their gratitude. They even offered me a full-time position within the company, an offer I politely declined. My work at Harding Distribution served as a reminder of where I had come from, of the obstacles I had overcome, and of the power of resilience and determination. It was a full-circle moment, a final chapter in the saga of the family reunion and the humbling of the Davies. I have to walk with them from time to time, working alongside, and it feels surreal, but I'm glad they're there and it feels good. I drive to my home after the day. I look out to the city, the world, to all I can be, to what I can be, and I smile. My phone rings and the phone says, "Dad." I accept the phone call and he asks how my day was. I state that it was another good day. A lot of work, good work. We speak for a while longer and end the phone call on a warm and loving note. I go inside to make dinner for myself, and I'm content and relaxed to who I am and what I will be. The setting sun casts long shadows across my office, painting the room in hues of orange and gold. I lean back in my chair, a sense of quiet satisfaction washing over me. The Harding Distribution Consulting project is officially complete. It's a weight off my shoulders, a chapter closed. The future is unwritten. I could rest on my laurels, content with the success of Foundation Supply and the stability it provides. But the entrepreneurial spirit burns bright within me, a constant yearning for new challenges, new opportunities to learn and grow. There is so much more that can be done. I feel the pull of the market, the possibility for more expansion in the market. I'm working hard and working well, and it's going better than expected. The sustainable building movement is on the upswing, and I'm going with it. A few weeks back, I was contacted by a small group from another startup, asking for advice. I could never be unhelpful for those people, and it felt right to help them. Perhaps my next venture will be in renewable energy solutions for the construction industry. Solar-powered construction sites, wind-powered machinery. The possibilities are endless. Or perhaps I'll focus on developing affordable housing solutions, using sustainable materials to create communities that are both eco-friendly and accessible to all. My thoughts are interrupted by a notification on my phone. It's a message from a friend, inviting me to a gallery opening featuring the work of local artists. I almost decline, feeling the familiar pull of work and responsibilities. But then, I remember the importance of balance, of nurturing my creative side, of embracing the unexpected. I decide to go, knowing that new inspiration can be found in the most unlikely places. As I get ready, I catch my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back is strong, confident, and resilient. She has weathered storms, faced adversity, and emerged with a newfound sense of purpose. Her past has shaped her, but it does not define her. With a final glance at my reflection, I step out into the night, ready to embrace whatever adventures await. Years have passed. The world has changed, as it always does. Foundation Supply is now a national chain, a leader in sustainable construction materials. I've become a sought-after speaker, an advocate for ethical business practices, and a mentor to countless young entrepreneurs. Liam? I haven't seen or spoken to him since that night at the reunion. I heard through the grapevine that he eventually found his footing, built a successful career, and started a family. I wish him well, without a trace of bitterness or regret. Margaret and David? They retired a few years ago, seemingly content with their quieter lives. They occasionally attend industry events, offering polite nods and acknowledging my achievements with a newfound respect. But my greatest joy comes from the next generation. My niece, Lily, is a budding architect, passionate about creating sustainable, affordable housing. She often seeks my advice, eager to learn from my experiences and avoid the pitfalls I encountered along the way. The other day, Lily showed me her latest project, a community center designed using innovative, eco-friendly materials. As I looked at the blueprints, I saw not just a building, but a symbol of hope, a testament to the power of dreams, and a reflection of the seeds I had planted. The cycle continues. The torch is passed. And I know that the future, in their capable hands, is in good hands.